Welcome to Season 3 of Coffee with a Journalist, brought to you by the team at One Pitch. Are you looking for a more efficient way to find the right journalists? Head over to our website at onepitch.co to learn more. Today, we sit down with Shoshi Parks, the executive editor at 7x7, a beloved lifestyle magazine all about the Bay Area. Listen as we dive into her editorial process, what she looks for in pitches, and how publicists can actually get her attention. Enjoy!
Welcome, everyone. This is Coffee with a Journalist. I'm Beck Bamberger. I'm a publicist. I'm a business person, whatever. The point is, we're all publicists here, and we need to understand how better to work with our reporters, our journalists, our editors, and so forth, so we can all do our job well and not be annoyed with each other. So that's why we're here. And with us today, actually, where are you coming in from, Shoshi?
I'm in San Jose, California.
San Jose in California time. Me too. Welcome. Is Shoshi Parks. She is the executive now editor at 7x7, previously associate editor, but she just got promoted. So congrats to you. Thanks for being here.
Sure. Happy to help.
Yes. By the way, did you get a PhD in philosophy? Recently?
In anthropology, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I
I
did.
was just like, we don't usually see PhD people on here normally as reporters.
Yeah.
So
It's,
welcome. And I love that.
First career, second career.
Yeah,
okay. It all kind of dovetails together.
Yes. Okay. For those who maybe don't know, because I do like to ask this of anyone who's doing the editing or the writing or whatever, even if it's the New York Times, how would you describe 7x7?
7x7 is a lifestyle magazine for the San Francisco Bay Area. San Francisco is the heart of our coverage, but we are expanding out a little bit more to include more of the peninsula, the South Bay, and the East Bay as well, which we haven't historically done. We do a lot of arts, culture, food, travel, and the travel does expand to, throughout California as well as the Western US, Mexico, Hawaii. So it's kind of the life you want to live in the Bay Area is the way I like to think about it.
Basically. This is what I would send anyone who's like, what's California about? Why would I want to be there? Boom, you go to this site and you'll be like, oh, I get it now. Okay.
Yes, I like that.
Okay, there we go. Now, as executive editor, how does that change your job from associate editor, if there is a big difference?
Yeah, well, I'm now, I guess, functionally in control of the editorial process of the whole shebang. So it just means a little. But now I am fielding all the writers, all our freelancers. I am doing some assignments, making some assignments. I'm still contributing some writing of my own. And working with our publisher as well on all of the business side of things that she takes care of, and then I kind of, stumble into and say, "How can I help?" And
yes.
Me
By the way, does that clarify, in your view, what any executive adjective in front of editor means? When you see the executive, it means like, oh yeah, you're tied into the business side, the operations side, the more all the stuff of making a newsroom work.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think every publication is different. We're a really tiny publication these days. We started out, we're about 25 years old at this stage, began in the early 2000s. And once upon a time, we had a print magazine and a full staff. Now it's down to, just 2 full-timers and a lot of freelancers who contribute. So in our case, the executive editor basically means, I've got my hands in kind of everything, but my specialization is, of course, the editorial content. I don't know how that works at other publications. I don't know if, there's a big difference between editor-in-chief and executive editor. I've always kind of thought of them as sort of the same thing, but I also don't have a lot of experience being an executive editor, so I don't really know.
It's new. Yeah. We'll see.
That's right.
So let's talk about perhaps your inbox, Shoshi, and just what is going on in there. And do you prescribe to the zero inbox cult?
I try, but I am a failure at organization and at keeping things, keeping my inbox clear. So, I do tend to go through it at least once a day and
Okay.
delete everything that is not of interest to me. So I don't
Oh,
even look at,
you do a
I'd
purge.
say,
Mhm.
65 to 70% of the emails that come in,
Mm.
because they're just either irrelevant
Yeah.
or I have no interest in what the pitch is.
So how are you quickly deducing that? Is it just it's obviously from the whole subject line because you're not I'm sure you're not clicking into
It
each of
is.
them, so you're just looking at the subject line.
Yeah.
And is it what are the flags for you where you're like, it just doesn't pertain? The actual content of it, they misspell your name, for example.
That is
Like
something I hate.
what are your top 5 of like
Yeah,
not for
so,
me?
I think the first thing is, so I should mention too that I have this position, with 7 by 7, but I do also freelance for some other national publications, so I tend to get a wide variety of things, but really I'm specializing in, I've got kinda 2 channels of stuff for 7 by 7, so stuff involving the San Francisco Bay Area or California, and when it comes to those items, I'm really looking for, well, first off, is it geographically relevant?
Mhm.
Secondly,
Yes.
is it even pertinent to the types of topics we cover? If you're pitching me something about a sports team, we don't do anything about sports.
No.
So that's completely irrelevant to me, and I'm going to delete that right away. Same thing with, say, somebody's representing a band, for example, and that's great, but that's just not really something we do. So anything that's just irrelevant geographically or topic wise, I get rid of immediately. Things that have a little bit more promise, perhaps they are within the geographical range. There's something maybe a little intriguing about the subject line. I'll typically open those, but I'd say at least half of those then get deleted after the quick open.
Okay. And then once a day is all you're saying that you kind of check ish. Mm,
I mean, I'm kind of constantly perusing my
yes.
inbox, but yeah, I try not to
As
focus
we
on it
mentioned.
until, I try to give it one solid kind of look every day.
Okay, just every wow, wow. I'm on it. So,
I
you're
don't
giving
always
me hope.
succeed at
Yes,
that,
it's
but
okay. You're giving me hope. What about sources for you particularly? Are you looking for I don't know park rangers in the Bay Area who know about the weather climate stuff, or restaurant insiders who know what's going on with who's leasing out buildings? Like, what's the get for you?
yeah, all the above. I mean, I
Mm,
think somebody who has a inside knowledge about whatever it is they're pitching is always going to be a more attractive pitcher than somebody who really doesn't know what they're talking about. And I do sometimes get pitches where it seems like the rep like literally is maybe maybe the job is new to them. I don't know, but it does
mm,
sometimes seem like they really have no sense of what they're pitching, and it's kind of all over the place. If it's somebody who really knows what they're talking about, I think, you can often tell, and they tend to have maybe a slightly more conversational tone because they're able to actually converse about the topic as opposed to just, here's what I'm selling.
mm. Ooh, okay, so that's maybe how you suss out a real expert versus just
It is one of many, I think, ways too. Yeah.
Okay, you're saying one of many. What are some other ways for
Mm,
you to suss out a source?
I don't really
Thank
know.
you, said my own.
Um, I guess just, if the what I'm looking for more than anything is for somebody who, I get a lot of cold pitches, as I mentioned before, from people who seem to have no sense of, who I am or what I do
Mm,
or what the publications I work for do. And I completely understand
mm,
that y'all don't have, any more time than I do to figure out, each individual need or each individual publication. But it's just, kind of wasting everybody's time to send something that is not up their alley. And
yeah,
so I think that is something I'm always looking for is, as you mentioned before, one of the, did they spell my name right, first of all, or did they address the email to a completely different person, which happens a lot. I get
mm,
it. We're all just cutting and pasting, but it's not the best way to convince me to take you seriously if you're
Yeah.
calling me Amanda, right? So so that's I think another thing is just, somebody who has some sense of who I am as a journalist or, what I do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so just it's meant honestly, the pitch is meant for me, like me actually, and I know it. I can sense it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's ideal, and even if not, even if it is just a sort of a cut and paste, and that is completely fine, but it should at least be on point in terms of topic or geographical area.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Mm. We don't have any audience asks. I'm looking at our little sheet here. That is totally fine. Oh, but let's get into story approval. Okay. Give us an insight into how that works. Now, I know you're now just, in the executive type of role, but as maybe a freelancer who's coming to you to say, hey, let's run the story. How does that work? How do y'all decide this is what's going to run for this week?
Yeah, so usually, at the moment, I've got about a 3-week lag time.
Hmm.
So I'm taking pitches right now for July or,
Hmm.
further down
Yes.
in
Yes.
summer. If it's something that is timely that pops up, and I wasn't aware of, I can occasionally make space for something like that. But, unfortunately, it is, we all have calendars we need to work off of. And so it is important to know what's coming up in order to get that pitch out so that I can assign it, in a timely way. Um, I don't know. I did not answer your question fully. Can you repeat the question and I will answer the rest of it?
Yeah, just how does it go about from an email pitch to the actual publication? And I like to ask, particularly for editors, because sometimes for a reporter, you're like, well, I got to get 4 stories out this week. Okay, I like that. I'm going to run it. But often from like the editor's lens, it's like, wait, I maybe send it over to that reporter. Okay, they come to me. And other times with saying, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Here's my stories, because so often reporters have to pitch what they want to do
Mhm.
to their heads at be to determine that. And then maybe you workshop and say like, no, we're not going to do that. Okay, I like that. Ooh, continue with that, and so on and so forth. So just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, we do both pitches from PR or other representatives, as well as writers pitching to me specifically, their ideas as well. And in both cases, I am the decider now.
Yeah,
There is no
I
other decider but
know.
me. But I do try to, having been in the freelance game for a decade, I completely understand how frustrating it is not to get a response to a pitch. While I cannot respond to all of the PR pitches I get, I do at least try to respond to every freelancer writing pitch that I get. So any reporter that has an
Oh,
idea, I
oh, that's
really
good
do
to know.
try
Mm,
to respond to them personally and let them know
mm,
either, why I am not accepting their pitch or maybe how they could tweak it to perhaps make it a better fit for us.
mhm, mm. That is so generous of you.
I just know how it feels to be on the other side,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's not a fun place to be. So I try to at least just give some feedback.
yeah. Generous, as I said. Speaking of, I'm sure you went through this process. You have a book coming out.
I do.
Yes,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit.
Actually,
It's coming. We researched some things. So you have it coming out next year, right? The
next
Human
year.
Zoo is what it's called.
That is the tentative title, yeah.
What is the Human Zoo? Every workplace or what? What?
It's a pop history slash science book. And it is about so at the turn of the 20th century, there was a really popular form of entertainment that modern scholars call human zoos. Essentially, they were indigenous people being exposed by the
Oh,
colonial rush who were
oh,
brought to Europe or the
oh,
US and
awful.
often put literally in zoos for people to watch in their living habitats. So,
Ah,
when you go to the zoo today, the
yes,
polar bear has their pool and their
yes.
rocks, and that's actually began the man who invented that for animals started out with humans. Um, and creating that type of environment.
What?
So it's about that, and then also very closely tied to that is the science of anthropology. It really began using these places as laboratories. So yeah, so it's kind of a dark
Mm.
history of
Mm.
between 1870s and World War One,
Oh,
meant for a popular audience.
oh, wow. Okay, meant for a popular audience.
Yeah. So it's not a
Oh,
academic book.
yes,
It's meant
yes.
for all of us.
For all of us. Wow. Okay, wait. I know this is like this doesn't pertain to in this podcast. Who cares? How did you get onto this?
So I started out in the world of academia in anthropology. I
Yes,
got a
you got
PhD
the
in
PhD as we talked
anthropology.
about. Yes.
Was very unhappy in that field, and left
Yep.
ultimately after a few years after I got my
Mm,
PhD. But um, I have always, even my freelance writing is really, I think, ultimately almost all anthropological. It all deals with kind
yes.
of this intersection of history, science, and
Mm,
travel. 7 by 7, I've branched a little more into the lifestyle
mhm,
arena, but the science, history, travel is kind of my backbone. So
mhm,
anyway, this is a story I learned about in graduate school, and I just kind of kept thinking about it, thought, "Hey, if I ever get
mm.
a chance to write a book, that would
This
be
is gonna
it."
be it.
And
Mm,
lo and behold,
here you are.
I got the chance. So
Oh, wow. Oof. Okay. Cannot wait to see that. Back to more publicists, and I'm sure you're going to have publicity for the book, and that's going to be exciting. Relationship building with publicists. So, and how can we make your life easier?
don't follow up with me 30 times, please.
Yeah. Okay. Ooh,
Please.
30 was that the top, or you're just mean?
Ooh,
Hopefully,
no,
that's
I mean,
you're
maybe
being
I'm
facetious.
exaggerating a little,
Yeah,
but
just a little bit.
I think 2 follow-ups are or 1 follow-up is good. So 1 initial email, a
Okay.
follow-up is good because
Yep.
yes, sometimes I do miss, subjects that I'm
Email.
interested in.
Yep. Yep.
After that, I think you can assume that I have intentionally ignored you. If you wanna do a 3rd, you're starting to get on my cranky side. If you
Yeah.
go into 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th follow-ups, we are not friends anymore.
I like that. Not friends. Excellent. Excellent. Oh, okay. What else?
What
Associate. I
else?
was, you know what, actually, okay, we don't want the follow-ups. You talked about making the life easier.
Yeah.
Is there relationships to be formed with you? Do you want to be at a Blue Bottle in San Francisco having a coffee with a publicist ever? Or you're like, you know what, please stay in my inbox. That's all I can cover.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'll be honest that
Yeah.
almost every publicist I've ever interacted with has been absolutely lovely. There's something
Ah,
about this field that really draws warm, interesting, kind of easy to talk to people, and I love that. That said, I don't have a lot of time, and, sitting down with somebody for coffee is a challenge. It feels like, you know, unless it's something that we're going to be diving deeper into, or it's perhaps somebody who represents a lot of businesses or organizations or whatever in my region that might be relevant to what I do. It I think is probably more of a waste of time than just sending me an email.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think about this all the time, and this is why we do, all these very efficient media events for our journalists, people in the tech world, for on the BAM side, because like, how is this journalist is not going to have 27 coffees
Yeah, exactly.
on any day or anything one on one? No, it's just you just can't at this point. So
It's just impossible. I mean, I'd love to. If that
yeah,
were that alone could be my job, just having coffee with publicists, you know?
and you get nothing done, you write no story. So there you go.
Exactly.
Got you. Okay, you already did the rapid fire questions for us before. So I wanted to give everybody just a reminder that if you want to see what the answers are, there's a pitch guide for Soshi here, and it's on our website. So, oh, and on our blog. So FYI for people to know that. Okay, final thoughts. Shoshi, is there anything that we can do to promote, to celebrate, to tout your stuff other than buy your book when it's out next year?
I mean, read 7 by 7. Go take a look, especially if you're in the Bay Area or Northern California or just the West in general, planning a trip out here. I would like to think we are in a little bit of a niche, just in that, not a lot of, there's tons of publications out here, but there aren't a lot covering sort of the more fun things like arts and culture and the outdoors. So if you're, if you're into any of those things, or if you kind of want to see this region with a slightly different perspective, versus like a travel guidebook or something like that, then check out 7 by 7.
Oh, excellent. And check out your book, and congrats again, Shoshi, on your promotion. Killing it. Got a book coming out, now executive editor. Look at you.
Things are happening. Yeah.
Living the California dream.
That's right.
The top. Everyone, this is Shoshi Parks. She's the executive editor at 7 by 7. She's not going to meet with you for coffee, but by all means, drop a good email and you could get the answer there, especially if you're a freelancer. She was going to answer you if you're a freelancer because she understands how that goes.
That's right.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Coffee with a Journalist. Do you want to pitch our next guest or ask them a specific question? Head over to our website at onepitch.co to learn more about our private networking community for PR pros and apply to join. We'll see you next week, but until then, start great stories.